Hello, welcome to AF Tech Talk, keeping you up to date on the latest in accounting and fintech tools. Each episode will take a peek behind the scenes, exploring the founders and the teams working tirelessly to build us the tools that power those we serve, tools like Earmark. Today we have our guest, Blake Oliver here, who is the founder of Earmark. He's going to talk a little bit about that. We also have co-hosts Michael Lee and Kenji Kuramoto.
Yeah, great. And before we bring Blake on, I know Kenji, you've known Blake for a long time. I've known Blake for a long time. Can you say a couple words of introduction about Blake, that just for the people watching who don't know him?
I'd be surprised if anyone does not know Blake. He is definitely the kind of voice of our industry. It definitely has the most popular podcast out there that most of us listen to. But he was a firm owner, like an early cloud firm owner as well too. So talk about someone who's kind of one of us, who knows accounting, built a firm, speaks every week on relevant topics, and also has a tech startup. So it's hard to imagine people don't know him, but I know he's near and dear to many of our hearts. So fun to have him on here today.
Yeah, and Blake has been a dear friend for the past few years now. I met him years ago in Accounting Salon when I was a part of that, and did not expect to become so close with him, not just as a business associate, a professional in the industry, but also as a true friend. And he's been with me through a lot of hard times for myself over the past few years. So I really appreciate him being on the show today. Hey, Blake, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Michael. Hey, Kenji. Hey, Marissa. Thank you. It's an honor.
Yeah, so we're really excited. I've gotten to know you over the past really 3.5, 4 years very closely, and just know you a little bit as Blake Oliver, the marketer and the CPA marketer, the first Zero U.S. partner in the U.S. But love for you to just kind of give a quick introduction about yourself, Blake, and kind of the story of why and how you're even in the accounting space.
Why and how I'm even in the accounting space. Well, I have to go back a little ways to the Great Recession. I graduated with a music degree. I play the cello. I wanted to be in an orchestra, and I wanted to play on recording sessions in LA. So I moved to LA, and I was gigging. And what do you know? Fun fact, the first budget line item that gets cut in Hollywood productions when there's a recession is the music, because that's the thing that gets done last in every production. So I saw the writing on the wall. Automation was coming for us as musicians. At that time, all of the automation around like synthesizers and sound samples, the Berlin Philharmonic was getting sampled, and you could buy it for like $300 and use it in your TV show. So there wasn't really that much need for actual musicians anymore. So I realized it was going to take me forever to break in. I didn't have the patience for that. And I ended up getting into bookkeeping because people wanted to pay me to do it. I couldn't get paid to be a cellist, but I got paid to be a bookkeeper, and I found out I actually really loved it. I love the system of accounting, debits and credits. And so I eventually became a CPA, started my own cloud-based bookkeeping, accounting practice, what we all call CAS now, or client accounting services. I was early with Xero. I was the second bookkeeper to use Xero in the US, and built a practice around Xero and paying the bills and doing bookkeeping and running payroll for clients. And that's basically how it all happened.
And then when I met you, I think you did this lesson on marketing, which was pretty interesting. So you had you've had some interesting career paths. But yeah, your focus was around marketing. You taught a bunch of accountants how to do marketing. And that was my first introduction to you.
Yeah, that was just something I kind of learned by accident because I didn't know how to acquire clients in person. I was like super awkward. And so I had a website though, and I learned how to do digital like lead gen with content marketing. So I wrote blog articles about QuickBooks versus Xero, and that generated hundreds and hundreds, thousands of leads for me over a bunch of years. And that's how I kind of got into marketing for accounting. And then I went to work for a couple of tech companies doing marketing. So I was a product marketer at Flowcast, and then I ran marketing for an FP&A startup called Giraffe. And now I'm doing my own thing.
Yeah. You're a doer. That's why you're such a good founder.
Yeah, most accountants don't go to that journey of a creative, then accountant, then marketing, and now you're a tech founder. Do you find yourself enjoying the marketing more, being a founder more? Do you miss accounting? Like, where are you at to that?
Well, I still do the books for my own entities, and there's a few of those now, so that keeps me that keeps my skills fresh. I think I'm still doing it. I miss it a little bit. I got to be honest. I don't miss having a lot of clients. I really don't. Um, but what I love about being a founder is it's a very creative thing. You have an idea, and everyone else thinks you're crazy most of the time, right? Like if everyone thought it was a great idea, they'd be doing it. So you have this idea, and you need to figure out how to make it a reality. And that's very satisfying when it actually comes to life and people want to buy it and you get product market fit. Like, that's the coolest feeling in the world from a creative standpoint. The part I don't like is like all the other stuff that you have to do to run a business, like all the compliance stuff, which is funny because I'm an accountant, so I should like that. But it's just like when it's like having a million things to do, right? And you can do like a few of them. That's the hardest part for me. I'm an inbox zero kind of guy, and like I haven't been there in a while. So
I would venture to guess, Blake, that most people, if they've heard of you, know you from the accounting podcast, right? So it is, am I correct, the most listened to podcast in our industry?
it's the most downloaded
Downloaded,
podcast in the
yeah.
accounting profession. So we say it's the most popular globally.
That's fair.
We have an audience of, we estimate like 100,000 accountants who tune in every year. And that's been going on for 7 years now. It's a weekly news roundup for accountants. So
How did that come about? Did that come about just as you mentioned being in marketing for your own firm or some other tech startups? Was that just the outgrowth of figuring out content for you or for others the podcast came about? Or was that just more of a curiosity and wanting just to talk about things in the space? How did that emerge? And I assume that ultimately ended up leading into some ideas around Earmark.
I started a newsletter at some point that was like a roundup of tech news in accounting. And it was like a weekly newsletter, one of those services where, like you just pick your stories and it sends them out.
Yeah.
And I did that for a few years. And then I actually don't remember why I wanted to start a podcast. I think it's because like it was cool and like people were doing it and I wanted to try it. And I love audio gear and I wanted an excuse to buy microphones and stuff. So it was just like the challenge of like making it happen. It's a lot easier now than it was then, right? It's so much harder, or it was so much harder to do a podcast.
We're demonstrating that fact right here by the fact that Michael was able to throw this together. So
I mean, literally, like the three of you can do a podcast now. This is incredible technology.
Yeah, from a basement. That's what I'm doing.
So, and then I ran into David Leary at a conference, and he's my co-host for the podcast, and he said, we should start a podcast. And actually, that was before I started it. And then I think the idea like got planted in my head, and I started it without him. And then he was like my sixth guest. And so we just hit it off. The chemistry was good. And so we've just been doing it for 7 years ever since. And that's how Earmark started. Was we had listeners who would come up to us at events and they said, "Hey, I'm a CPA. I learned so much from listening to your podcast. I should get CPE credit for this, continuing education credit." And it was like a joke. But so many people made that joke that I thought, oh, this could be a real business. And so one day I was like trying to figure out what to do next with my life. And I sat down and I downloaded the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy standards for continuing professional education. And I read through all 66 pages and I figured, I think we can reverse engineer this into giving CPE to accountants for listening to our show. And that was how Earmark got born.
Had anyone else ever come up with something like this before? I mean, did you see this? I don't think so. I saw this in accounting or any other industries that had continuing professional education requirements.
So I ran into a couple of other providers doing this one in our space, and that's LumiQ, which is our like main competitor, if you want to call them that. Although the space is so huge, right? It's hard to. I wouldn't necessarily say that. There's in some other professions like legal, medical. There's a few people that have been trying this out, but not a lot. Which actually is kind of a concerning thing, right? If you don't have a lot of people doing something, is there really a business? But I figured that if I did the math and I figured out there's 1 million accountants in North America with a continuing ed requirement. So how can we build a business that could be like profitable based on that, right? How many would we have to get? What would we have to charge? We could do it if we're lean. So, and it would not be like a fast blitz kind of growth strategy. And so that's the approach I've taken. It's been like 3 years now, and we're just growing like slow and steady for the most part. But it's like very profitable. We use AI to do a lot of the course writing, and that's how we're able to have one full-time employee in the US. I mean, and put out 100 courses a month. So it's like one of those niches where we're never going to see like a VC dump, $100 million into it and try to just take over because it's not big enough. But I think that's like kind of a nice thing because we have our time. We don't have to like race to the top. And that's kind of like my approach in life right now is like, I don't want to like work 80 hours a week either. So
Blake,
yeah,
can you share like there might be accountants watching or the founders watching and wanting to build something, their first app, their first software product. Can you explain the journey you went through or what it was like to build it, not being a coder yourself, not being a technical in that sense from an engineering perspective?
So I hired a guy on Upwork in Pakistan, and we built the first version of the app together. I told him what I wanted. We would get on every night at like 8:00 my time, and he's 12 hours offset. So we'd get on late at night. He'd show me what he'd done the day before. I'd give him feedback, right? We did that every day for like months. And this was at the same time I was getting the license from NASBA to offer the CPE. And so that took a while. So basically after about 8 months of like building the MVP and getting the license, we were ready to launch it. And we had like the basic things set up to do it. I learned a lot doing that, right? Because what we ultimately built, we had to rebuild completely a year or two later. So part of it was like educational, but yeah, it was, I mean, you can, and we didn't even have the AI, coding tools now, right? It's like, I feel like you can build an MVP like really affordably. I didn't raise money to do it. I just bootstrapped it myself. So, and that was really important to me because I didn't want to go out and, give away 80% of the company to be able to build the app.
And how long from idea to launch did that take to build, knowing you weren't doing this full time?
Yeah, it was just sort of like at nights and weekends, and it was about a year.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And what year was that? When did you start that process?
That was like 3 years ago now.
Okay,
I think.
Great. That's great.
3-4 years ago. Yeah. So we're up to we've had like, let's say 20,000 people have registered for the app. We got 30,000 emails on our list. We've got approaching 2,000 subscribers on the app. And so, if we stopped all development today, we'd actually be cash flow positive. Yeah. It's not a huge amount of money, right? But it's like operationally we're profitable. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe that's just the accountant in me, but I've always felt that's really important, right? Like if we turned off the R&D, we should be able to survive, is how I've always felt.
What's your end goal for market capture if there's 1 million people that need CPE?
Well, if we could like 10x our number, right? And if we get like, I don't know, if we get 10, 20,000 subscribers, we'd be great. From a cash flow perspective, it would be a good business. We charge $150 a year right now for an annual subscription for an individual. We're adding in teams so that you can like your whole accounting firm can subscribe. And that's a really big deal. There's certain features we need to build for these learning and development managers, but we're almost there. So then it's just like growing within accounting. And I think it can be a very nice, profitable, like lifestyle kind of startup in a way. But the real promise is if you go outside of accounting and if you can do continuing education for all sorts of professions, because there are a shocking number of professions that have a CPE requirement. Water well drillers, right?
Wow.
The guys that come and drill a well in your backyard have to get like 20 hours of continuing education every year.
Wow.
I was sitting next to a guy going to Las Vegas and he was telling me about this. Like he was a driller, and he's sitting there and it's like, he just looked like this blue collar guy, right? He has to get continuing education. And he explained to me, it's because if you do it wrong, you'll kill people. You'll
Wow.
poison, the well will be poisoned. And so I thought, that makes a lot of sense, actually, right? So yeah, if you could do medical, legal, real estate, financial planning, I mean, all of these professions have continuing ed. So that's like where there's a big opportunity. It's actually like a multi-billion-dollar market globally.
Wow.
People always make fun of the fact that, non-accountants make fun of the fact that I listen to accounting podcasts like yours. And and think about the people that have to drill those wells and listen to those kind of podcasts.
Yeah.
Maybe they enjoy them.
Right.
But I enjoy yours.
Well, so like his situation is there is no online CE really for that.
Yeah,
It's like
nothing.
he
No one's
has to
listening
go
to this
in person. Yeah. So, I mean, I wonder how many professions there are where it's just like really antiquated. I mean, we know in accounting, right? Most of it is, a lot of it's like webinars or in person, and we're also doing the in person, by the way. So that's a new feature we're building into the app that we hope we have to release it. We have to release it in July because we've got contracts to do it.
That's right. Yeah.
Where like if you're at an in-person event, you can scan a QR code to check in and put in all your information, and we verify the attendance, and you get your CPE for your live in-person training. So we want to be the app, like the app that does all continuing education in accounting.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Blake, can you show us the product? Can you show us Earmark, especially?
Yeah, go ahead. So if you share my screen here, so this is the Earmark app in our web app. So the Earmark is available on iOS, on Android, and on the web. And we use Flutter to develop it. That wasn't what I started with, but that's what we ultimately rebuilt the app in, was Flutter for our front end. And the benefit of Flutter is you can develop one code base that works on iOS and Android and the web. So it saves us a ton of development resources. We'd have to have like separate teams doing that, and we don't. That's really nice. And for an app like ours, which is pretty simple, it works great. An example of another app that is well known that uses Flutter is MGM Resorts. If you go to Vegas and you get your room key, all that stuff, like that's all with Flutter. So it's pretty neat, and it's like accessible to us as a small team too. And of course, everything's responsive, right, on Flutter. So it works for the web app. We got work to do, but like it's functional, right? And that's what accountants care about, that it works. We use Supabase for our backend for anyone who's interested, so we don't have to like have our own backend. We've got backend as a service. So this is what you see when you log into Earmark. It's really the same view as the home screen on the mobile app. And we don't have any events right now. So I'll scroll down to the courses. These are all the on-demand courses we have. And you can see, we've got Clarity has just put out a bunch of courses. These are webinars that they did. They want to offer CPE for. So we can take existing recordings of webinars and we can turn those into CPE courses. We've also got podcasts that we produce and podcasts we don't produce that are on the app. And by the way, we get paid to create the CPE courses for a bunch of shows. That's a big revenue stream for us. So here's an example, is the Unofficial QuickBooks Accountants podcast by Alicia Katz-Pollock, formerly also Hector Garcia, but he is no longer a co-host of it. It's just Alicia now. So this is a course based on one of their podcast episodes. It's available for half a credit. And I can click on here, and it has all the necessary information that we are required to show by NASBA. It's got the description, learning objectives, a table of contents, prerequisites. We've got an index. We've got a glossary. we use the audio of the podcast episode as our primary learning activity. And then we create quiz questions and all this other metadata based on the transcript of the podcast. Excuse me. And the thing we've automated that makes it possible for us to do this at a very low cost is I've created an AI prompt chain that turns the transcript of a podcast episode into a CPE course. So it does all of this. It creates the quiz, it creates the learning objectives, the index, the glossary, all that. And it does it at a cost of about $2 in API credits using, we use Claude at the moment. But it's built in a way where we can swap in and out the models. So every time the model gets better, our CPE course writer gets better. And then we have a team of humans who review the courses and make sure that they're okay. But it does like 98% of the work. Oh. And this is something that used to take 3 to 4 hours for a human to do per course. When we started doing this, I had humans writing the courses, and it wasn't scalable because of that, right, at our cost. But this way, it's like, and as the AI gets better, we're going to have it start to do the reviews as well. But my goal is like eventually, you know, if you have a podcast, you can just go and like sign up for Earmark and put in your RSS feed, and it will just create courses for you to review and approve based on your podcast episodes. That's the dream.
Blake, do you ever envision, because it seems like you've solved for some bottlenecks around creating content, right? You can go create scripts, you can take existing podcasts, there's a lot of, and make them into courses. What about, are there enough people to deliver the content today? And if not, I don't know if that's a bottleneck or not. If not, have you ever considered, using AI to actually go, and you've heard these AI podcasts before, people showing, have you been tempted to try that? Or what do you think about folks who do that?
So I've tried apps like Notebook LM. Google has this thing where you can drop in a bunch of content and it'll create a podcast about the content. It sounds weird. It's a little weird, right? It's got that it's still in that, it just doesn't sound right.
Something's a little bit off, right?
Something's a little bit off, right? So I wouldn't go straight from like, here's a dump of like material. I want you to create a podcast episode about it and then use that as the course. It's not quite there yet, although who knows in a few years if it will. But I on my list this summer of things to do is figure out similar to how I can take a transcript and create a CP course with an AI prompt series and do it reliably. I want to create a chain of thought or prompt chain where we can give it technical materials and it will then do the research and draft the course script. And then we could have humans review the script for say a half-hour course on, I don't know, R&D tax credits, right? Human reviews it, approves it, and then it goes into an app like 11 Labs to record the episode in my voice. Wow. And the voice cloning has gotten so good that most people would not be able to tell the difference. So if we can get that figured out, then basically we can create unlimited technical content. And that's our biggest gap right now, is that we don't have enough technical content on the app. There's plenty of people creating, how to sell, how to market, coaches that do that. There's all sorts of, there's good technical content too, right? But imagine if you could just go into Earmark as a CPA and you could say, I want to learn about something. And we just create the course for you, on demand. You just say, I want to learn about this. We say, we don't have a course on this, but would you like us to make one? And you say, okay. And then in 20 minutes, there's a course ready.
Yeah.
That would be
some new change to the tax code, right?
Yeah.
Comes through maybe in a very, very unique way that maybe only affects you and a few other people in a very weird jurisdiction. You could literally take that as a request and say, sure, here's 20 minutes. We'll have a CPE course for you that you can learn and get credit for it.
Michael, if you put my screen back up, I'll finish the demo. I got a little sidetracked there. Real quick. So basically, you have 3 things to do in most of these courses. One is you watch or listen to the podcast episode. We have a built-in player, and if you click on that, it'll start playing the episode in your app or in your web browser. and you can listen. Fun fact is you can listen at 2x, and nobody will know that you did it at 2x. So you listen to the episode, and then we have to include these review questions. That's required by NASBA, but they're optional, so you can do them or not. Two multiple choice review questions here, and then there's a quiz. And the quiz is 3 questions for one half a CPE credit. You get all 3 right, and you hit submit, and you get your certificate. And you can just email it to yourself. And so that's like how simple it is. It's just like listen to a podcast episode, take a short quiz, get your CPE. And you can take the quiz as many times as you need, so there's like no pressure. That's basically it. That's the whole app. And it was definitely a learning experience. Like you think something like that is really simple to code and to design and develop, but like to get it to be this simple, like the simplicity is the hard part, actually.
Yeah.
And then just to show you like the variety of the content on the app, here's all the different shows that we have. We call them channels, like YouTube channels here. Variety of shows that we produce and that we don't. Oh My Fraud, that's the most popular show on Earmark. Every show is a deep dive into a particular white collar crime.
I guess no matter whether it's in accounting or whether in just general podcast, it's like true crime is like everybody's favorite. Isn't that like the genre that just
true crime is the
everyone's
podcast genre, top podcast genre. So we figured let's try creating a true crime podcast for accountants, and guess what? It works.
It works.
Everybody likes
There's a
learning about
formula.
frauds. What's amazing is that so many of the frauds like result from the same lack of internal controls. It's like always, it's like separation of duties is like such a common failure of internal controls, and that's what allows like 80% of the frauds to happen.
Wow, you have a lot of channels. This is great.
Yeah, so it's like we have over 2,000 courses on the app. We retire some every year. We add 100 every month. And here, the University of Texas, they've got this show, Audit Chats. It's pretty neat.
To check that one out.
Talk about niche, right? Like there's something for everybody here.
That is a niche. I probably should have disclosed this up front on the top of this, but I'm an actual investor in Earmark because I just think it's fantastic. I am no longer an active CPA, but I do think had this been around by the time when I went inactive, I probably would have stayed active because I think CPE was such a pain. But one area, Blake, that I was really compelled by when we were running Acuity was just we started having conversations a couple of years ago about like, how we wanted to offer as a benefit a way to make sure, and just a way to make sure our team was upskilled constantly of like, how can we give this to our entire team? And so you mentioned there's team plans, but you want to talk about that more? I just think firm owners sometimes we tend to think of just CPE for ourselves, but I think also there's some great opportunities to provide CPE for your entire firm.
Yep. Yeah, like you said, Kenji, as your firm gets bigger, one of the responsibilities you take on is making sure that all of your people stay on top of their CPE and keep their CPA licenses, keep their enrolled agent licenses. And I don't know if I mentioned, we're also licensed by the IRS to offer continuing education for enrolled agents. So a subset of our courses that are based on federal tax qualify for that. So when it comes to like firms of say 50 or more people, that's when you start to need somebody to manage learning and development for your firm. Our goal is to like help that person out. We want to give them for a very reasonable annual subscription for the firm, a way to offer super convenient CPE to all their CPAs and CMAs and EAs in the firm, because the last thing they want to be doing is hassling people to do it at the last minute. They can offer Earmark to the firm and say, hey, you get an unlimited free subscription. Just do this on your drive into work. You don't have to sit there at lunch doing a webinar, or you don't have to go to this conference that you didn't really want to go to anymore, right? So that's really the growth opportunity for us is, can we get like the top 400 firms to start using Earmark? And what do we need to build, to make that work? There's some like tracking stuff we need to do, the ability to push CPE courses, But the thing that really differentiates us from anyone else that nobody else does is we can take your internal training content that you send us, and we can turn that into private courses on the app that are only available to your people in your firm. So all those like lunch and learns that you
That's
do
cool.
internally, we can offer on-demand CPE for those. And there's a number of firms that offer live CPE for that stuff, but they don't have the license to do on-demand. So they'll get a lot more people benefiting from the CPE if they can use Earmark for that.
Yeah, I think that was a one of the areas that we loved about it was because we were looking at, we felt like as a firm, we were going to maybe need to invest in a learning management software, an LMS. And that's a huge endeavor, and really it's just to keep people up to. But when we realized to talking with you guys that with Earmark, we could have access to all this external content to provide the team, and even the trainings we did internally, we could put on a private channel and have team members, if they were new, go back, whether it's through onboarding or just through retraining, could go look at specific acuity training. We're like, that's perfect. That solved that issue for us in a huge way. So I was excited to get that.
Kenji, you should join the sales team. You're doing really good.
I should. Again,
I would like to do an external monetization of that too. So some of those training things that we use that are definitely proprietary from our process standpoint, would love to be able to share those. But also we've spent so much time building that and creating that it would be cool to be able to sell that as well. So Blake, are you fundraising right now? Or are you trying to still continue to bootstrap? What's your...
So we did a friends and family round at the end of last year. We raised $500,000, and I'm embarrassed to say that I have struggled to spend it. Like I still have I think I have all of it, honestly, still. And I know it sounds crazy, because the other problem, it's like usually founders are like running out of cash. I think this is the accountant in me. This is my weakness, actually, is that like I don't want to spend it if I don't have to, but I know I need to. But I don't want to just waste it all on like Google ads, right? That's the easiest way to blow it, right? Facebook, Google ads, trying to paying a lot for subscribers. We just saw, like it happens so frequently. Like these startups overexpand. They over, like, what was it? Truin just laid off their entire sales team, and they've only been in the market for like 2 years or something.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't want to be that, and I've seen so much of that in accounting, doing my podcast covering accounting tech for like a decade. I don't want to be that, but that's also like I need to figure that out, right? So we're gonna spend the money. We're gonna do it this year. It's gonna be a H2 thing, I guess.
Well, at least the friends and family probably have that confidence of Blake's not going to blow the money with his accounting.
And you were oversubscribed on your last, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we were over. So,
and you're like, don't give me any more money. I can't even spend what I have.
Can we just talk about this? Like the accounting profession is a weird place to sell software. Mm-hmm. Like it's not like you can't take any of the lessons of like B2B SaaS and apply them in accounting. They just don't work because I've been there. I'm a former firm owner. I don't buy stuff in a like 2-month sales cycle. It's like 2 years. So I know that like all this stuff that growth hackers, do just doesn't really work in accounting. You have to build up the trust, and it's about relationships and referrals and recommendations, right? It's like, what you say, Kenji and Marissa and Michael, mean to other firms about like Earmark and recommending it means way more than anything I could spend money on, right? So that's like I'm hesitant to like do the traditional growth marketing. But it's nice because it does give us like, we have breathing room, and we're going to hire some key roles. And I think that's where the money's going to go, is like hiring, a really great sales leader, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's ever been a time as a firm owner that I have, I'm guessing the rest of you are the same way too, that I've really purchased any accounting software without at least running it by, I don't know, at least all of you or a ton of other firm owners. Like we are in the background talking constantly about who's using what. So it's a different channel for sure.
Yeah, I love what you said, Blake. Every founder I've met with building in the space, app, I'll tell them, look, what you're going to show me today, whether it's amazing, whether it's better than all your competitors, whether it's not at all, and I can prove this with tax software. tax software, if you've used it, the winners in the market, terrible interfaces, terrible to use, so hard to use, so hard to learn, not intuitive. Yet they have a grip on the accounting market, like a grip. And the accounting firms keep renewing with these old pieces of software. And so relationships key. So I always tell new founders is that, of course, build a great product, but you need a solid go-to-market plan. You need a solid one that literally lines out how are you going to sell to accountants, how are you going to do it, and it can't be we post ads up. It's not going to work. Yeah,
you have to prove that it works with a few firms. You have to find evangelists. You have to develop evangelists, right? So there's no point in spending money on ads. And there's really not, I mean, you can spend a lot of money going to conferences and buying booths, right? At very expensive prices. You can spend $100,000 on going to a single event very easily. And what do you generate from that? You're probably better off just like seeking out in many ways, just seeking out the accountants who are willing to take a little bit of a risk on you and try out what you have and just really develop a great relationship and keep building the product for them, right? Like get those customers excited, show them that you're listening. Like that means more than anything. So, and how do you price that? How do you put a price on that, right? It's slower, but also it is like a lot more of a sure thing than another startup world, right? It's like, and I think the great example is like Bill.com. It took them 20 years to IPO. And when they did, I think it was like half their revenue or more was from the accounting channel. And it was basically twice as slow as other startups, right? It took them twice as long, but they're also like never going to, like, for another AP app to pull out Bill.com and insert themselves into these top 400 accounting firms,
very difficult.
It's just never going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's super sticky. That's why accounting is great, right? But it's also slow, which is also why you see these like startups just like burn out and crash.
Yeah, it's tough. Even I know many of us were strong Xero users, but just ask Xero when they came to the US market, what they, and it's a great product and it's still around, but like what they faced just coming into that incumbency that Intuit had just been here so long. It is difficult to move people off of software that they are already used to, especially in our space.
Yeah. If it works, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it is kind of, I would say, one of our core principles of accounting that is unwritten.
That conservatism, right?
Yes, the conservatism. And I get it, right? It's all because we're so busy. Accounting firms have more work than they can handle.
And so careful. It has to be perfect. It's like you can't make a
Yeah.
mistake in the software that you build me.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. And like when it comes to AP, for instance, it's like if payments get screwed up and clients are calling asking, hey, this check I sent never got there. And now I've got late fees, or now I've got a problem with this vendor. Like that's the problem you don't want to have as an accountant.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right, Marissa. It has to be like 99.99% is what you got to strive for. Well, you got to strive for 100%, right? So.
Well, Blake, this has been awesome. We're really excited about your success so far, and obviously, three of us are friends of yours. We get to watch this really closely. For those watching that want to reach you, what's the best way to get a hold of you where they'll actually hear back from you?
They actually hear back from me?
Yeah.
I think I mentioned that like my inbox is not at zero anymore, but just email me, and it's blake@earmarkcpe.com. blake@earmarkcpe.com. Yeah. And I'd love to hear anyone who has thoughts and feedback, like that. Like I said, that is the most valuable thing. So if you're an Earmark user and you're listening and you have thoughts about what we should build and what we should do, I want to know.
It's also how it sounds like Earmark got started. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's how it started was listener feedback.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Blake. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks much, Blake.
Thanks, everybody.
good to